right, welcome back, Mr. Dennis Jay, here in the music room. And Randy isn't with me tonight because he has almost laryngitis. So my co-pilot tonight is Barbara Moore.
Hey there.
Howdy, Barbara.
Well, Dennis, tell us about you, kind of from the start. Where were you born and raised?
I was born in the Midwest, but I was raised in Europe from I'm trying to think, it was like from kindergarten through 7th grade, so long
Military,
ago.
I take it?
Yep.
Yeah?
Yep.
Wow. So when did you come to Texas?
My first trip down to Texas was in the early mid-1970s, and I sort of took a look at it and did some more meandering around the Greenwich Village, and then after that came back and started living here in the late 70s for quite a few years, and then again went back east and did some stuff back there musically and otherwise, and then permanently moved back here to Texas. I guess it's now 13 years ago.
Okay.
Yep. So I've been on and off since the 1970s.
Right.
Yep.
So music has been your full-time job?
Yeah. For these last dozen or so years, bouts of it before, sometimes 3-4 years, I do it full-time, and then I'd have to go work different jobs in order to survive. So.
Right. I understand.
You're not alone.
Yeah. That's a story that I don't think I should get into that deep, because everybody's gone through it.
Oh, well, you know what? At least you're able to do it now. You're doing something that you love, and you're making everybody happy. And
hope so.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, when did you decide that you could write music?
I started out playing drums first, and the guys up front singing were getting all the girls. So I decided I needed to get a guitar. And then after I got the guitar, I realized I wasn't going to be that good a guitar player. So I thought, well, maybe I can write. And that's when I started writing.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I could, I started to put pen to paper, see if I could come up with stuff.
You know what? It's the majority of male songwriters that we've asked about writing music and playing guitars, it's all been because of getting the girls.
You got it.
And then they fall in love with what they're doing, and the rest is
Well, if we
history.
ever do this again, I got one song that I remember that I still have left over from the first batch that I wrote all those years ago. It's kind of like almost like an Everly Brothers type song that I wrote, and I'm not going to play it now, but we'll do it maybe next time and see whether it's held up or not.
Sounds good.
It's a pretty cool little song, but anyways, so yeah.
Yeah. So who would you say are your songwriting influences?
Well, they're all the great ones out there. You got to listen to as you're coming up. Probably the number one for me has always been Hank Williams, and then, but what are you going to say about Johnny Cash? I mean, Marty Robbins, all that stuff. And then I was big into cowboy music with Gene Autry. But the songwriter stuff was probably Merle Haggard too, and then Lefty Frizzell, Jimmy Rogers. Those guys were the songwriting stuff. And then there was a whole folk music group of writers that I liked. One particular guy was a big influence on me vocally. When I first heard his records years ago, I thought he was I was big into Merle Haggard when I was a teenager in my early 20s. And this is when I first heard the music of this folk musician named Fred Neil. And his most famous song is that theme from Midnight Cowboy, Everybody's talking at me.
Oh, yeah.
Can't hear a word they're saying. Anyways, he did a real neat little tune that I remember called, I'm trying to think of that. I thought this was a real neat little. Would you like to know a secret just between you and me? I don't know where I'm going next, don't know where I'm gonna be. But that's the other side of this life that I've been leading. But that's the other side of this life. When I first heard him sing that song, I thought, man, this guy can write and sing. He had this real deep voice. So he was a big influence. He was an interesting guy. He was, everybody acknowledged him as like this amazing artist, songwriter up in Greenwich Village. But he wrote Candyman for Roy Orbison. And he wrote, that said, Everybody's Talking, a bunch of other songs, and that song, The Other Side of This Life. And then one day he just turned his back on it entirely and went down to Florida and got a boat and decided to spend the balance of his adult life saving dolphins.
Wow.
Yeah, he just turned his back completely on it. You know, he got that close. Johnny Cash really wanted him on his television show real bad.
Yeah.
But he walked away from all that. His name was Fred Neil, Fred, and then Neil. Look him up.
Okay, I will.
Yeah,
it makes you wonder what makes people tick sometimes.
Well, he was very, very different, unique artist that was never fully recognized in his lifetime. And now, all these years later, after he's died, people are now really seeing it. I guess they're just a tribute record that just came out with a bunch of people, and everybody's shaking their head. You know, how did we miss this?
Yeah.
I mean, they knew it at the time, but he was just so, you know, it's like, man, I don't know.
Kind of introverted.
And also, you know, he could sort of see the BS in showbiz for what it is.
But there is that.
Yeah.
And you know that there's that movie, the Last Waltz, you know, with the band in it and all that stuff. That Martin Scorsese documentary. You know, Dylan's in it, Joni Mitchell.
Yep.
You know, they had a 12-string guitar waiting there for Fred Neil, and people were like pushing him to go on stage so that he could get in this movie. And he said, "No, I can't do it.
Oh wow.
Can't do it." So
what
yeah.
a shame.
Yeah, in hindsight, it is too bad. There's very little film of him. There's just a few bits and pieces.
Yeah.
Stephen Still said he was one of, if not the major influence on his songwriting and stuff like that. Same thing with David Crosby, said the same thing. They all did. Anybody that came into contact with this guy, and when my English high school teacher turned me on to this guy, and it's kind of stuck with me since then. So I had sort of the folk music thing, and then I had the country western and then cowboy stuff, and then, you know, I see a lot of Fab Four stuff in here. I mean, this is the, you know, this is
Just
the,
a little.
yeah, but this is the gold standard.
Yeah.
You know, for songwriters. I mean, these guys, you can't even describe it in words. You know,
Dennis, I'm hearing some Woody Guthrie.
Oh boy, well, you know, that's. I'm glad you mentioned that because that's really big stuff with me. That I'd say it was like him and Hank Williams. You know, my first songbooks, my first two songbooks, I bought a Hank Williams songbook to teach myself to play this stuff. And then I bought a Creedence songbook so I could learn the John Fogerty songs. And then shortly after, I really began getting deep into Woody Guthrie.
Yeah.
You know, I ain't got no home, I'm just a rambling ram, just a wandering working man going from town to town. Policemen make it hard wherever I may go, and I ain't got no home in this world anymore. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've seen all that stuff. I went to the Woody Guthrie Center after I played the Folk Alliance a couple years ago, and it's just amazing. You know, all of his drawings and everything like that, and all the Dust Bowl adventures. A great artist.
Yeah. You mentioned Folk Alliance, so you've been there. Do you go to Kerrville?
I'd love to play to Kerrville.
Swerva?
I've been to Swerva. I'd love to play Kerrville if they maybe watch this show and then give me a call.
Well, we have friends and contacts and all that.
Please,
so
I mean, it would mean a lot to me because when I first moved to Texas, I got a chance to go out there one time and see it kind of back in the 70s.
Yeah.
And you know, one of my favorite songwriters of all time was a guy who used to be in the Kingston Trio. His name was John Stewart, and he wrote that song for Roseanne Cash called "Runaway Train," and he wrote that song that the Monkees recorded called "Daydream Believer."
Yeah.
I could hide neath the wing as a bluebird as she sings. You know, all that stuff. And so, he was a California songwriter, and boy, I mean, he was born and died in the same hospital kind of thing out in California.
Oh, isn't that wild?
And then he played Kerrville later on in his career quite a bit. He used to go out there, and so, man, you know, if you know anybody, let them know.
Yeah,
you know?
I think they'd like you because really you're different in that. Well, I mean, they have all kinds of music there. It's not just folk, but you're so classic with the country western sound. You're not hearing as much of that at all today.
Well, also too, you know, the good stuff, you know, as a writer is when you kind of get the mixing bowl going. You know, how can I describe it? And I don't mean to sound kind of highfalutin here, but it's like you sort of take all these things and you got to kind of run them through your own prism, your own camera, because if you just pull one thing and you try to sort of glom off of just that, you kind of come up against a brick wall.
Yeah.
So you got to kind of decide what's the most important kind of foundation stuff, and then kind of push yourself a little bit.
Develop your style.
Well, don't just write one kind of song. You know, like that song "Right Up on the Edge" that I played. You know, when Lloyd Maines my producer heard that, he says, "Man," he said, "that's your Leonard Cohen cowboy song, man." He really liked it.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and it's an unusual song. It's not necessarily something that, you know, you would consider it in this box or that box. But I didn't really care, and Lloyd loved it.
Yeah.
And so
yeah.
that's.
But you're staying true to your sound and your music, even
you
though
got
your
to.
songs are different.
Right.
They're still you.
Well, something that's important to me, you may have noticed it in the music, is that I came of age as a songwriter where there was still, the music wasn't called country music, it was called country and western. And so what happened back then, and this is hard to explain to people unless you lived through it, was there was this big tent. And in this country and western tent, you had people like Rex Allen doing cowboy songs, appearing at the same kind of places that Porter Wagner would play at. These guys like Porter Wagner were recording folk song like The Last Thing on My Mind with Dolly Parton, and there was this whole like cross-pollination between folk music, cowboy music, country and western music, you know. Right. I mean, Ernest Tubb, you know, recorded Chuck Berry's 30 Days and did a great job of it. Marty Robbins did That's All Right Mama, you know. And so this is the best music. It's like, you know, all the barriers come down and the writers just write, and it's fertile stuff. And now we've gotten way away from that. Everything has to have its little box. You're this, or you're this, or you're this, or you're this. You know.
Well, we just say Americana, and that covers everything.
Yeah, and that's okay. But Americana isn't quite, I don't think, the same tent that country and western tent was.
That's true.
You know
that's
what I mean?
True.
The country western tent was really linked up to, you know, the old bluegrass stuff, the old Carter family stuff, you know, the old folk music stuff, and all these artists and songwriters were into that.
Right.
I mean, you know, there's a great songwriter out there named John D. Loudermilk, who wrote, you know, Break My Mind, and he wrote that song Tobacco Road, and he was considered a Nashville songwriter. He just kept coming up with these great songs.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, you know, it's the songs.
Yeah. And speaking of songs, you won an award for a cowboy tune.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
That was completely off the wall. Didn't have any idea at all that anything was that going on. What happened is I got something, it was either through, I think it was email or Facebook, saying that, you know, you've been nominated in 3 categories. I think it was for Best Performer, Best Songwriter, and Best Song, or something like that. 2 or 3 categories. I mean, I thought, I got in touch with these people. I said, you should have done some sort of misprint, you know. And then I called Bobby Newton up, and I said, good Lord, I said, how did you people know about me? I mean, because I'm not really out there, you know, drawing attention to myself, you know, with
well, apparently you are.
Well, I didn't though. I mean, I don't. That's not what I do. Like I said, this is all that really counts to me. And so I said, well, how did this come about? You know, and he said, I guess the DJs must be playing it a lot because you got these nominations and a lot of them are coming from the DJs. I said, well, that's great. So I went up to Fort Worth, you know, bought my Sunday best with me and stuff, and, you know, fully expecting to, you know, go back to my motel room after the event, you know, and feel sorry for myself and then go back home, you know. And lo and behold, near the very end, they called out my name for the best Western song, and, you know, somebody had to elbow me to get me up there, and
That's
I did.
Great.
And, you know, I mean, I was very humbled by it, you know. I still kind of blink when I think about the fact, how did this really happen? Because I know that there's people in the pursuit of their career that have really aggressive things that they do to win awards. It's part of kind of what their machinery is, and I don't really fault them for that. But that's not you. I think you have to have a personality to do, you know, a certain kind of personality to do that. And boy, if I tried to do that, I would just look foolish and stupid. You know.
Well, that makes you more real.
Well, I don't know if it makes me more real. It probably makes me, you know, down on the career ladder. But I mean, again, the only thing that matters is this right here.
Well, that song mattered enough to enough people.
Yeah, and I'm touched by that, and that's what I mentioned when I did my little speech here. How humbled I am that somebody or some bodies out there actually thought there was merit to this song, because it's a real personalized song. It's a different kind of cowboy song.
I loved it.
It's a man. Thank you. It's a man at a certain stage of his life trying to reconcile things that he's done right and wrong, and still trying to find some sort of pathway in his life.
It's very relatable. I mean, I think we all get, you know, to a point in our life where we're thinking the same thing.
And
so.
it's not gender specific. I mean, it could have been written.
Right.
The same emotions for anybody, whether
Sure.
you're a man or a woman. You get to a certain stage, and now you question things, and you've been questioning all your life in your pursuit as a writer, and now you have to reconcile all these things to try to, be a reasonable, decent human being.
Right.
With all your faults and foibles.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why you look in the mirror.
Well,
Anyways.
you've been talking about recording with Lloyd Maines. Tell us how you met him and
Oh
how
boy!
you got
Well, it's
into
kind of a
that.
long story. It was through a mutual friend, and this friend said, "Boy, what would you think about Lloyd Maines producing?" I said, "Oh man, that would be like a dream come true." I mean, Lloyd is an amazing guy, and he is truly, just no BS. He is like the genius that you've heard that he is. This guy operates on a sort of a musical level that's kind of like out on a solar system that most of us don't inhabit. He has a set of ears and a set of eyes and a mastery of, he not only plays great steel guitar, he plays lap steel. He played spoons on my record.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because I mentioned I wanted to simulate horses' hooves, and I said, Lloyd, I was thinking some spoons, because I was watching Hee Haw one night. He says, man, I know how to play them. And so he plays bass. He just kind of does it all, and he produces, and he has a great set of ears and a great heart. So this friend introduced me. It took a while because he's in demand. He's one of the most in-demand
yes.
independent producers out there, both in the major leagues and then in the minor leagues. Everybody wants him.
Right.
And so when he picked me to work with, after he listened to my stuff, I was happy, and we've continued to work together. We did the one record together, and now we're working on another one. So.
Wow.
Good for you.
So let me ask you, if the people who are listening want to get in touch with you, buy your music, find out more about you, are you on the World Wide Web? And if so, how can they reach you?
Yeah, well, it used to be called when it came out. I prefer that old term, the old school term of it. Remember it was called the Information Highway?
There you go, the Information Highway.
Yeah, it was called that, and I kind of like that.
Yeah.
I'm just. What's that Hank Williams song? Another soul on the lost highway. I'm another soul on the information highway. And so yeah, you can get a hold of me at dennisj.com. But really, the best thing if you want to find out about stuff, if you're on Facebook, if you'll friend me. I'm really zealous about that. I make sure that nobody gets in there and spams, and the only people that can get into friending me are those that I approve, and like I said, I guard that very carefully. That's another way to do it. If you want to buy the albums, well, they're CDs, but I call them albums, you can go to CD Baby, and I think there's still a few copies of my first two, and then of course there's a lot of the Lloyd one.
Right.
It's called Western and Country.
Now, is your EP out yet, or
No, we're
When's
still
that
looking
due?
at 2, maybe 3 months. We just got to see, thinking seriously about putting it out in both CD and vinyl. So if that's the case, that's going to take time to really jangle the thing just right for the artwork, and it'll be cool to be on a 45 RPM jacket again, man. A little bit bigger.
Yeah.
And I like the fact you take it out, and you put it on 45 RPM, and you get 2 cuts on one side, flip it over, you have a B side.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm psyched. It would be nice to see something that I do spinning around the turntable.
I think your music would really go with a 45.
Well, there's a certain warmth to the record thing. There's the visual. I mean, how many of us, would sit around either in a group, but mainly when we're lonesome by ourselves, we sort of feeling things, and you put on that record and you watch either that slow album, the 33 and a third, or the 45. You watch it move around.
Yeah.
I got old 78s by like Ernest Tubb and Nat King Cole that I love, even watching them move around real fast. Yeah, it's like cool, man. And you get, the music machine goes round and round.
Vinyl's making its comeback, so I think it would be a perfect time.
Ain't that
to
something?
do
That's
that.
what they tell me, man.
Yeah.
They tell me that there's a whole generation. Probably what's happened is it's pitched so far to the other end of things, that now they really want that kind of. I want to hold it. I want to see it, and I want to smell it.
It's got that warm kind of.
Well, yeah,
sound
it's
too that you
like
don't get
it's
with the
warm, and
CD.
it's also it's like linking you up with like a line that goes back generations now. When you pick up a piece of vinyl, somebody 50, 60 years ago picked up a piece of vinyl and threw it on a turntable, and that's what made them happy
There you go.
or sad.
Well, Dennis, it has been an incredible evening with you,
Well, thank
and
you.
I am so glad that you joined us this evening, and we got to know a little bit more about you, and we will look forward to hearing that 45 coming out.
Yeah.
And see how that goes. And we'll all friend you. Everybody friend Dennis Jay. It's Jay.
Yep.
On Facebook, and that way you can keep up with what he's doing and when that EP comes out.
Yes, and I thank you for your graciousness and your hospitality, the Dr. Pepper.
Absolutely.
And I'm starting to kind of lose it a little bit too. So I think that goat chasing exercise that Randy was doing out there with the pollen, I think it must be through. I'm getting a little bit too, because I drove today with the windows open, with the window open, and I think I'm now beginning to feel that a little bit.
Yeah.
It's great out there, but man, you forget about the pollen until all of a sudden
spring is here.
Well, it piles up, and then that's it.
It does. Everybody who's listening, thank you for joining us. Continue to come back, and you are in the music room.